Hi, everybody. Welcome to this special episode of the NeoMasculinity Solutions team interviews. And there's a reason why we're doing these. We have another great guest today. You're going to love this guy. I love him, and it's not that creepy kind of love. It's a pure love. We're working on a global project, and this particular individual, Mr. Clinton Davis, you see him right there. I mean, look at the guy's study. He's got Buddha, a bonsai tree, and the mountains and ocean and the sun behind him. I mean, how cool is that? So we want you, the listeners, and we're glad you're here and we're grateful. We want you to know that Neo-Masculinity Solutions is not just a guy with an idea on the internet trying to make a living. It's an actual company with a global mission, and we're backed up by a team of professional, true souls who believe in the mission. And that's so important. So without me babbling on for too much longer, I want to introduce Clint Davis to this episode. How you doing, brother?
I'm good, man. Thanks very much for that lovely introduction.
Yeah, you deserved it, man. You've been one of the most happiest guys we've ever worked with. And you do it, you tell us what you say you're going to do and you do it. And I want everybody to know what Clint is working on. He's like the grand master, the guru of AI operations. And in his case, he is developing and creating the curricula for the Brainary, which is going to literally shift the paradigm on human intuition and critical thinking all over again. So again, I don't want to babble on too long. That's what coffee does to me. But let's tell the listeners and the viewers, Clinton, who you are, what you're all about, and how you got to that seat right there. And he is in Ireland, by the way. He's a
Yeah.
long lost brother of my ancestors. So come on, Clint, tell us who you are, man.
Yeah, so it all started in Cape Town in South Africa. That's where I was born. And traveled a lot since then. My first job was in hospitality, and got stuck into that in the late 80s. Survived South Africa in the 80s, which is achievement by itself. And then yeah, went to Canada, went to Australia, in the UK. Then came to Ireland and started studying with software development, and got a job. And this is where I sit here now. I have a beautiful little girl. That's why I am still in Ireland, but sticking out the weather. But yeah,
Yeah. You do have your own
absolutely.
company, though. Tell me about the company you have.
Yeah, so my company is called NeoCortex, and I designed that to actually work with software. I started my very first company was a website development company. And then from there, I kind of switched into working with humans, working with people, trying to help men get out of tough situations, like I managed to get myself out of.
One thing about you, Clinton, that I've noticed is that you're very meticulous, like a lot of people are. But the thing about you is that you're meticulous in a way that takes these sometimes confusing programs and procedures and all of this, and you can scale it down and work it to where it becomes more human. I know that we're
Mm.
working on the curricula for the with AI, and you've been getting into that, and you've already stated to me on more than one occasion that AI is a real trick because it morphs and it changes and it can change our messaging. And so, what you've had to do, if I understand what you were trying to say, is that you're having to ask AI in a certain way that gives to us the messaging that we want without it making a judgment call, if you will.
Yeah,
Because,
absolutely.
yeah,
One of the biggest things I found with that was I found it. And the funny thing is that creating a curriculum on critical thinking, and I had to actually pull the AI aside and go, "Hey, you're not being fair. You're not looking at both sides of the story. Like you're actually you have a bias. You have a like everyone else does, like a cognitive bias. It had a cognitive bias." And I actually had to put it out aside and go, look, you're not being fair. Let's actually do this from both sides. I want an equal opportunity for both sides to actually, have their say in the curriculum. So yeah, it was a learning curve for sure, absolutely. And I think working in hospitality for so long as well, and then also working in coding and being relatively sort of logical is it has it has its perks because I can kind of humanize it a lot more than most people can.
Yeah, that's very cool. So let me think about this, Clint. So, and this, I'm just a guy on the street, right? So you're telling me that AI is already been coded in a biased way from what you've encountered.
Yeah,
And that's
100%.
real.
That's real. Yeah, I found Grok, the Twitter one, a little bit more liberal, a little bit more sort of left, sort of less agenda pushing, and more kind of you get what you ask for. Whereas some of the other ones were sort of leaning towards more of the woker side of the categories, which I had to pull them straight and go, no, you're leaning. And then I even actually bounced the two together. I would give one answer from one against the other and say, is that a fair judgment on what I'm asking? And sometimes it would say no, actually, and pull itself up because it is a machine at the end of the day. But yeah, that's one of the things when it comes to misinformation and disinformation, and you gotta watch where the information is coming from. That's why critical thinking is so important.
That's
It's
brilliant, man.
paramount.
And that's the reason this is a good lead into neo-masculinity. So, hence the reason, because of those kinds of things, that we're building these tools and you're helping to create a global curricula from kindergarten to college to reignite intuition and critical thinking, logic, reason, and common sense. That's why we're building these tools to give the people or the people that buy our products and services a baseline that's neutral and one that's
Mm.
not some kind of social narrative that would create confusion and more division than what we see already. Is that fair to
100,
say?
100%. I mean, it's in it everything. I mean, it's in the algorithms that everyone uses, Facebook and Twitter and Snapchat or whatever they use. It's in there already, and there it's polarizing. It's polarizing thinking, and it's because of the echo chambers. Where if you put in, say, I come home from work and I found something, or somebody one was talking about something I found relatively interesting, and I'll put that into a search into one of my social media accounts, and then what will happen is that it'll give me all the information that has everything to do with that. You know what I mean? So the next video will be on a similar track and then a similar track. And then so you kind of reinforce the same thing you're going down the whole time. And then say the person I live with goes the other way. They hear something completely different from the other side of the fence. Now the same thing happens to that. So now we get into the lounge and we start talking. There's a big fight of the separation because it's also polarizing now because there's no sort of people are not so acceptable of talking about their differences. It's either you're with me or you're against me. And this is the kind of thing that's been creeping in a lot everywhere. With same with the sexes, with the male and the female. It's like we seem to be fighting against each other instead of actually working together as a unit. So I think the algorithms, and we've got to just understand that like they're doing this on purpose. There's bigger things at play that are trying to separate people like this.
See, and that's what great explanation, by the way. That's why we decided, which leads us into NeoMasculinity Solutions, because of the narrative of toxic masculinity. We started taking a closer look at it and wondering why the people that put out such a narrative would want to emasculate men, which is what it does. But even more so, the level of, and you mentioned it a couple of times, misinformation and disinformation and malinformation and social media noisy information and now AI information, which you just pointed out, is somewhat tainted too. So the threats that we see, and this will lead right into neo-masculinity, is that if we are not cognizant and aware and utilize our human intuition and our critical thinking skills, we're setting ourselves up for major social failure, the destruction of the family, the destruction of culture and societies. And like you said, it's done on purpose because we know that a house divided will not fall. But
Mhm.
why this project? Why did this project intrigue you?
when I was talking to, I was working with Kristen, and she mentioned you in one of our conversations, and we were talking about toxic masculinity, and the dire straits that men are in. We're talking, actually, it was talking about the suicide rate between younger men, and it was, it's off the charts, and it was kind of worrying. And then your mission got popped up in conversation, and she was like, "Yeah, just have a chat with John and see how we go from there." And then once we had a chat and saw your mission and how passionate you are about it, it's the same with me. I'm passionate about it because something needs to change. It's not a good thing. I mean, toxic masculinity gets thrown around whenever someone's masculine, and it's not the masculine or the feminine that's toxic. It's the human being that's being toxic behind it. But it all sort of gets looped together. There's a lot of talk about toxic masculinity, and yeah, I mean, there's a lot of examples of toxic people being masculine. But you can also say it the other way around with the femininity. Don't get me wrong, I'm delighted the way the female power has been able to rise above all the hatefuls for so long, but I
Yeah.
don't think it needs to rise above. I think it needs to equal and match because we can't live without each other. Would you
That's a
agree with
brilliant
me?
statement because that's what, and we were even indoctrinated into that. It's a man's world. It's this, it's that. Men are running
Mm,
everything. Women never have a chance. But the women are the ones that are raising the families. And the men are the ones in general and traditionally that have been the protectors of family and the ones that they love. And as the threats of saber-toothed tigers and mastodons has gone away, the male gender role, not identity, that's something completely
mhm,
different. You just mentioned it, but the gender role has shifted to protect family not from saber-toothed tigers, but from information that is rewiring and using social narratives that just aren't true.
mhm.
And
Yeah, 100%.
yeah,
Before in the back in the day, we would go hunt and we would protect our family. That's what a man's job was. And then, as the time came past, we didn't have to hunt so much. So then we became the money makers. That's the old school. And then now the women have come up as well. Now the women are making money as well, which is fantastic. But it's kind of leaving the men with nowhere to go. And you take them out, you take someone's purpose away from them. They get lost and they get stranded and they get hopeless. And this is where it's kind of happening here now a lot. You can tell by the amount of suicides that's going on.
yeah, and even when we talk about legacy in the future and hope, and I know you as a single father, with a daughter coming along, and you and I talk about it all the time that we're
Mm,
doing this legacy project because of your daughter and children that are, not only in single parent homes, but also where both parents are there. And if our children cannot, or we as protectors cannot guide them in a positive direction, then we've failed as a parent. And when I think that little girl of yours has to be able to, the future of our whole humanity is based on children like your daughter, because she's got to be able to separate fact from fiction,
100%.
truth from lies, and nowadays fantasy from or reality from fantasy. That's a tall order, and we if we don't do it, that's a commission that all adults who care about their kids and loved ones need to take on, and they need to quit listening blindly to the things that are being taught to children and up to us that are destroying the fabric of the societies we live in.
Yeah, no, dead right. I mean, critical thinking is one of these things that doesn't get taught in school anymore. It's gone by the wayside, and it's one of the things that kind of separate us from any other animal on this planet is that we have the ability to think critically. And, as I say, if you take away that, the brain atrophies, and you get used to it, and you're kind of kept in the fear, and then you're easily controlled. We need to be able to critically think and accept ourselves for what we are and be more as a unit instead of the individual. And we need to teach this to our kids because this is the future. They need to be able to see this from the start and go like, well, okay, you can't just believe it. I mean, I grew up as a kid, no corporation would sell you food that was poisonous. That was I believed it because I mean that's what it was at the time. You're kind of yeah, no, everything's grand. You won't get poisoned by the corporations. And like, now it's all coming out. You're going like, oh, really? Wow,
I
okay.
know, I know. I lasted 2 years
Okay.
in the corporate lifestyle. When I found out that you couldn't innovate, you had to toe the line. I was like, for a fundamental creative person, corporations are great for some people, but it just wasn't for myself. And I probably see you in the same light. It's time to move on and do something that where you can take all of your skill sets and give those
Yeah.
gifts back to the world. So, as a single father, what three things are you or have you taught your daughter that will help her later in life?
Question everything. I've always asked her, and she does, which is great. There's a lot of whys. It's good, I don't get annoyed by it. I think it's fascinating. Question everything and grit. One of the things I'm trying to instill in myself is grit, and praise praise the doing, not the outcome. I think is super important as well for children. But when it comes to sort of critical thinking, like we haven't actually got there yet, but I make her ask everything. She's a bright girl, so I have no doubt. But as soon as she starts going down the road, we're just believing it because that's what everyone else is doing. That's when I'll be like, oh, okay, nope.
Well, that's good, and that's what more men and women need to do as parents. When we were younger, we were wide-eyed and bushy-tailed, and nothing affected us. We just drove on. But now things have gotten different on a mass scale. And so, say grit, you have to have grit. You have
Hmm.
to be tough to be able to persevere and overcome all the nonsense that comes to us these days.
100%. I mean, this is a 5 minute world. If nothing's not done in 5 minutes, like they lose interest. It's everything happens like it has to be instant, instant, instant. Where grit, you fail, you learn, you carry on, you keep on going. That's what I want to try and instill in her is the perseverance to pick yourself up because you fall down less than you pick yourself up. You're always up more than you're down. So think of it like that, like on the plus side.
See, and I remember my dad, that's great. I remember my dad telling me coming along, he said, John, it's tough out there. And I'm glad he used to beat the hell out of me, but he, I probably deserved it, but he said, you're going to have more good times than bad.
Hmm.
And it's those bad times where you have to have, he didn't call it grit, where you have to have that mindset that whatever's befallen you at that time, you're going to get through it.
Hmm.
Something like
And
that.
unfortunately, the brain, the way the brains worked, it's a survival mechanism from when we were running around in caves and dodging saber-toothed tigers. Is we remember the bad more than we remember the good. Because I mean, the good is great, and you're going to have, as you say, you're going to have way more good times than bad times. But because the bad times are, a life and death in the olden days, like your brain picks up and remembers the bad times, and that's something you've got to understand.
So let's just say you're the creator of the universe. Clinton Davis created the universe. In a perfect universe, what would it look like to you?
In a perfect, yeah, I think the first thing I would actually make sure that doesn't come around is greed. Greed would be one of the first things I would ban completely. It wouldn't be
Yeah, the
around.
greed police out there. That would be
The
cool.
greed police, yeah, that would be my biggest thing there, because you're gonna have good, you're gonna have bad, you got to try and be all of it together. As I said, I can't remember who said it, but it's like you to get to heaven, you have to go through hell. So you got to accept the good with the bad. So that's always going to be there. But greed is something that slips in and it's a destroyer.
We talked about that you were thinking of some type of a program you'd like to put together where people that have more than $100 million worth of value have to do,
Personal wealth, yeah.
you're right, have to do something with it
Yeah,
besides
absolutely.
just turning it over and
Sitting on it.
patting their own. Yeah.
Yeah, trying to fly to Mars or whatever the hell they're trying to do. Like, let's fix what's not what. Let's fix what we got in front of us that we can fix. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, if I was the Almighty, I would definitely like no personal wealth more than 100 million because you don't need that much money. You know what I mean? That could go into so many things that would help everyone all
That's
over the
true.
place. Like,
There's the other side of the argument. Well, I worked for it. Well, yeah, you did,
yeah,
but Can't you
Cool. So
give
did
a,
everyone else.
can't you give us a break? Anyhow, yeah. And I think that if we were to ever create $100 million worth of value and assets with the program that we're on, we would definitely spread the wealth. In your estimation, do you believe that the world is receptive enough to get back to critical thinking and logic and reason again?
Yeah, I do, Um, I do, but I think people just don't know how, and I think people they get swayed quite easily, and they lose interest as well unless it directly affects them. But I have a look on the online, and I'll have a look at some ridiculous thing that's come up, like on some news thing or whatever, and it's just pure rubbish. And then you'll have a look at the comments to see, how many people are actually like falling for it, or how many people are actually like standing up against it. And I see a remarkable amount of people that are actually going like, wow, okay, this is rubbish. You know what I mean? Like, where's the proof? And to me, it's kind of inspiring, and it's not inspiring, but it's like it gives me hope that not everyone is just getting sucked into it. And I think as we speak right now, the world is waking up quite quickly to all the shenanigans that's actually going on. And it's once you're aware of what's going on. I mean, awareness is key. So when you do the course, I mean, that's one of the things I also do by making the course. I've learned so much is if you have a look at it, like Chase Hughes says, like we're in a psyops. You know what I mean? And if you know, and they're using the critical thinking tools against us, especially the cognitive biases and all those kind of things, where they say things in a certain way, and you kind of you kind of fall for it. But if you're actually aware of what they're doing, it's easier to go, hang on a minute, that sounds awfully like this or that. You know what I mean? So then you can go, okay, now you can question it. It's who's funding it, what's going on. Who did the research? It's like, oh, a paper was made of this and it says this and this and this. Okay, who paid for that paper? Because 80% of the time when the research is done, the paper is in favor of whoever paid for it. So,
Yeah, follow the money. I know that in our Sentinel handbook that we created, it's available in 9 languages. It's a baseline. An eighth grader or older can understand it. And we have the human intuition sniff test.
hmm,
That's one of the questions, follow the money. Who funds this organization, whether it's television or radio or newspaper? Who's funding it? And then why would they tell me a story like that? And you are 110% correct, Clinton, when you say awareness is everything. And it's
hmm.
amazing because the tools we are creating is very helpful. But at the same time, the more you become aware, and this is where my own personality comes in. I have to give myself this anger litmus test, right? If I'm mad about something within 3 minutes, then chances are whatever it is rubbish, like you said earlier, that there's something not true about it. And I think at that core level, that Genesis level, you just feel it intuitively. Like, what do they think we are? A bunch of, are we
Yeah,
just that stupid? Yeah.
yeah. But I mean, I'm gonna use the climate change as an example because it's one that's most blatantly out there and obvious. I mean, yes, the climate is changing. It's because, we 80% water on a rock floating around space. Like if you want to study the weather, you have to study like what's it, fluid dynamics or something like that. Like so because it is fluid and it's the one constant is that it's changing. But then you'll see, like the weather reports from the 1980s, say of like America, and it'll just have like a gray back, I mean, the yellow background with like a sun and a rain and the temperatures. And now it'll be exactly the same temperatures, except the colors are like this really dark red and like it looks burnt, and it's just the same temperatures for the same time of year, and you're just like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like what are you talking
This
about?
is crazy, and not to digress, but that we can use that as an example. I'm glad you brought it up. This is one thing that got me about the climate change narrative or mantra is that geologists and climatologists have identified 4 periods of time in the millions of years, obviously, that Earth has gone through 4 ice ages.
Hmm,
There's been times when the ice covered the Earth, every lick of it was covered up, and times when there was no ice.
hmm,
And yet, the formation of ice and the melting of ice all occurred without the burning of fossil fuels, which they blame it
Yeah.
on oil, right? Right now on planet Earth, there is more ice on the Earth, which survived, by the way, than back during the dinosaurs. So you're right. It's all, and no one, they all look at me and they say, you're just a smart aleck, you're just a troublemaker. Well,
No, you're a
explain,
conspiracy theorist straight off as
yeah,
soon as you don't agree with it. Yeah.
yeah, explain to me how the ice came and melted without the burning of gasoline. Explain that to me, and then maybe I'll come
Exactly.
over to your side. But
Yeah. No, it's there's also, I mean, this is another thing, a part of the critical thinking is, you can make a graph say anything. If you just change
statistics, right? Yeah.
the start and the end, you can make it say anything. Absolutely. I mean, if you where the Earth is now with the parts per million, I think we're at 250 million or 250 million parts per million of CO2 or something. And the Earth is the greenest it's been in generations. It's thriving. It's absolutely love and life. Yeah, the weather's a little bit rough at the minute, but it's thriving. But we don't know how much weather modification is actually going on either, as well, which is a whole nother podcast all by itself. But so and then they have a look at I think it's the Health World the
Is it
WHO.
WHO? Yeah.
Yeah, the WHO, the
Oh my
WHO, and
God.
they're saying they want to bring down the CO2. So I think it's like 175,000 parts per million. The extinction level is 150,000. So it's like, what are you doing? Why do you want to bring it down so low? Everything's actually okay. I mean, it fluctuates, We're actually relatively cool at the minute. And everyone's saying, oh, it's getting so hot. It's like, no, we've only been here for this long. So we don't know what hot or cold actually is on this planet.
You're so totally right. Everything fluctuates and everything is a system and a process. And you throw human beings into it who are greedy and love to be in power and control. And then there's where we
Hmm.
start to run into problems.
Yeah, you see, the problem with power is, it's like it's an addiction. And so once you have all the money in the world, then what do you have? Okay, so then you want power. And then once you start getting power, it's it's like the crack addict looking on the floor for the dropped piece of drugs. You know what I mean? It's like that, but except it's a lot more suit and collar, if you know what I mean.
Oh,
And
yeah.
yeah, and they just want it all. I mean, and it's not right because we don't as a species we don't roll like that. Should all be about openness and the group effort.
Human beings, even down to the individual, should always be in some kind of continuous improvement program. We know that not everybody's the same, and that's the strength that we have as a global population. But at the same time, if we're not improving, then we just are stagnant. And
Hmm.
stagnant doesn't allow any of us to be totally self-realized. When I look at Buddha behind your shoulder there, and I'm thinking, some people will mock it. Oh, well, oh, woo-woo, meditation, oh, yada, yada, yada. But what they don't really understand about Buddha is that little individual there sitting like that is cultivating his mind. And
Hmm.
that's what a lot of people don't do. It's too easy. Oh, yeah, Clint said it. I believe Clint. Okay, I'll go about my business. And Clint just told me a lie or something, right? People don't take the time to introspect and to
Yeah.
use that intuition that was given to us from the universe, God, if you will. That's another interview, but that's what we would like to empower is people to be critical thinkers, to use their intuition, to be decisive once they have the logical answer and reasonable, and then use some common sense, which seems to have evaporated on so many different levels.
Yeah, I mean, common sense is one of those things. It is kind of cultural, but in the same breath as it's well, you've got to get together. Like once you can actually answer the questions of what is they trying to get from me, and then this is one of the things actually with I was talking about you mentioned earlier on about how we have to be careful when we use the AI, is because a lot of the times you'll ask AI and it'll be like, oh, that's a great answer, and you copy and paste. You don't even read it. So you don't even actually get the information or the knowledge that you actually wanted. And again, it's like your body. If you don't use it, you lose it. So the brains will start to atrophy after a while, and you won't be able to critically think. You won't be able to think about these things. So you have to use AI carefully in a way that write what you need to write as much as you can, and then use AI as a tool to help you get even further than you were.
Yeah, great point, because I've actually worked with individuals who have been involved in writing content or giving us back information and come to find out that, we paid for people that were actually giving us something right off an AI program without
Hmm.
any thought in it at all. And my gosh, it looked good and it looked fancy and it sounded good. But when you started to dissect it, it really wasn't what we were looking for.
Hmm.
Again, a whole other,
100%.
we should do a podcast show called Glitches. My life in the
Yeah.
pot in the digital world, what we've encountered, and we could give some great tips to the listeners, right? So let's shift gears here a second. What's your favorite movie and why? Any movie.
Yeah. You know, I think the one that always, it just popped into my mind, and it always seems to pop into my mind, is The Lost Boys
Great
from
movie,
the
yeah.
80s. Great
Yeah.
movie. And I mean, it's about vampires and stuff, but it's just one of those ones where I think it was just one of the age I was when I first saw it. It was just magic, It was just spooky and it was just powerful and reckless. It was cool. I enjoyed it. Yeah. So that one just seems to pop into my mind. I mean, there's so many good movies. There really is. There's so many good movies I've seen, but none of them are actually coming to my forefront of my mind.
That had a really good song in it too by Bauhaus. I can't remember the
Yeah,
title of the song, but
yeah.
in a section of
Had
that
a
movie,
great
but
soundtrack. It's a great soundtrack for the day. Like, yeah, it was
yeah,
very
that
cool.
that that was a timely movie. But let me ask you this: what's your favorite book?
Would probably have to be Wayne Dyer's The Way of the Tao.
That
And
is
it's
a
like
good book. Yeah.
80 stories of just ways to live your life. And I had it as an audiobook. And just Wayne Dyer, the way he reads it, which is beautiful.
What's that third book you have on your shelf back there? The third one down.
Uh, Be Who You Are by David Godman.
Sounds like a good title. Okay, favorite car.
Favorite color.
Car.
Favorite
Well, we'll go.
car.
Okay, what's your favorite color?
Favorite color is blue. If I had to walk into a shop or go buy a car, I'd buy a blue car.
And
But,
what type?
what type? Something big and beefy. I quite like the Raptor, the Ford Raptor.
Oh, you mean the truck?
Yeah, the
Yeah,
truck.
yeah.
Yeah, I like trucks. I like trucks.
That's a nice vehicle too. I know a buddy of
Mm.
mine down in North Carolina that's got one. It's beefy, man.
They're just beefy. They go anywhere. It's one of those things that if you get snowed in, nah, it's no problem. If you're in mud, sure, no problem. You want a mountain? Ah, we go up it.
Yeah, I like that. So, how about your favorite quote?
There's actually one that I heard relatively recently, a few years back. It's by Peter Crone, and it's things happened the way they happened because they happened that way. They couldn't have happened any other way because that's the way they've happened. It's one too many happens in there, but that's more or less it.
No, no, I get it. In other words, you're saying things are the way they're supposed to be because it's the way they're supposed to be.
Yeah, it's
Something
the
like
way it's
that.
supposed to be because it's the way it happened, and that's you can't change that. That's it.
Yeah.
And
We find
actually,
our, yeah,
when I was in quite a tough time, that quote just stuck with me, and I was just like, you know, there's it just sort of made me think that I was thinking of myself in such a victim mentality, and I was like, why? I can't change anything, and it just from there on, everything just switched.
that's great. We find ourselves over analyzing every single thing that happens to us. And I'm saying this obviously rhetorically because some people don't care. They just go about their life. They don't care who they hurt or what they do. But if we spent more time to just realize that quote that you said, Clinton, we could accept things the way they happen without going into some fog that's not good for anybody.
100%.
So, what would be if I came to you and I said, Clinton, why would I take the Brainary curriculum? What's it going to do for me? Why would I take it?
Oh, why would you take it? Why wouldn't you take it? Um, because it'll open your eyes to what's going on, and it'll open your eyes to how you think. Because a lot of people are just completely unaware of how they think. It's all just pre-programmed, and they just go about it. They'll come home the next day, what did you have? What did you do between 6 and 8 last night? They'll be like, they'll literally have to stop and really think about it because they're not conscious. And when you take the course and you hear different stories, and you understand the biases, and then you'll hear like a news article and you'll go like, oh, okay, you click, the things fall into place, the pieces of the puzzle kind of happen. And that's why everyone should take it, because you've got to know your biases. I mean, you can even know what a bias is, you know what I mean, and your cognitive biases and things like paralyzed thinking, and echo chambers and these kind of things. It's what's happening all the time, all around us, 24/7, and we don't even realize what they are.
Yeah, that's a great answer. So we have the brain freeze mini
Hmm.
course it's a great gift for parents or single parent to watch with their children. But we have the Sentinel handbook, we have some master classes coming online, and then
Yeah.
you'll be finishing the Brainary first quarter next year. And so, super excited about the future. I encourage everybody to visit neomasculinity.solutions to check out what we're doing and some of the work that Clinton has been involved with and has created for the company. And I want to thank you, Clinton, for your time and your enthusiasm and your brain power for being on this global project. It's going to pay off in a big way. We're going to help millions of people, and you're part of that, man. Um,
I'm
and
happy to be a
also,
part of it.
yeah,
Privileged.
it's awesome, man. Thank you for that, and also the listeners, for taking time, important time out of your day to listen to two guys shoot the breeze about something that's very significant. And I just want to thank you for tuning in and watching this interview. So, Clint, I look forward to the next time we have a discussion. It won't be too long, and look forward to the future, one day at a time. Any final
One day at a
thoughts?
time. Yeah, just be yourself, love each other, come from a place of love with everything you do.
There you go. Thank you.
Thank you.